Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to Kidney Stories 2 show. Tonight, we have something special for you. We're going to talk to our friend again, Kent Bressler. He's going to update us on what's going on with Kidney Stories, or Kidney Solutions. My bad. I'm sorry. I got Kidney Stories on the brain. Kidney Solutions tonight. And also, we have one of his friends on, Jonathan Traylor. We're going to talk to John about his kidney story and how he went from diagnosis to dialysis and currently looking for a kidney, and Kent and Kidney Solutions are helping him out with that. So by way of introduction, first for Kent Bressler is a member of the AAKP. He's on the board of directors. He's a field ambassador. In 1982, he was diagnosed with FSGS, a disease that causes scarring of the glomerulus of the kidney and is notorious for other health problems like large amounts of protein in your urine, large amounts of protein in your blood, high cholesterol, high blood pressure. In 1987, Kent received a kidney from his brother Kip. So he's had his kidney for 33 years now. He's been on immunosuppressant drugs that are essential in guarding against the rejection of his transplanted kidney, but also they can have some harmful long-term side effects. He's participated in kidney disease research reviews for the United States Department of Defense. He's a mentor for potential transplant recipients. He was on the steering committee for NEPCure International. He's also doing some work with PCORI, the Patient-Centered Outcome Research Institute. Kent was a registered nurse working with Peterson Hospice. He is retired now. He's working with Kidney Solutions. Kidney Solutions is a group down in the Texas area that helps people obtain transplant. So we're going to be interested in talking to Kent about that tonight. He's very active in his church. He has 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren. And Kent, you're working too hard at this child thing. Jonathan Traylor. John is a friend of the show's, friend of mine, friend of Kent's. He's currently a home dialysis peritoneal patient. He is seeking a kidney donor. He has a very, very, very interesting kidney story to talk to us about tonight. So you want to make sure you check out Jonathan when he talks about his kidney stories. He's working with our buddy Kent and Kidney Solutions, trying to find a kidney donor. He has a kidney page on Facebook, and check out John's T-shirt tonight. It's got his kidney page on it. So we've got a lot of ground to cover. So let's bring on our friends, John and Kent. Hi, guys. How's everybody doing?
Hey, Jim.
Hello,
right.
Jim. What's up?
All right. All the guys are here. It's going to be a great show. Listen, Jonathan, I'm going to talk to Kent a little bit first, and then we're going to get into you and your kidney story. Is that cool with you?
Sure.
All right. Kent, the
Yes,
last time you were on, we talked a little bit about Kidney Solutions and what you're doing for the kidney community down there in Texas. What I promised the folks that we would talk about the next time that you were on is a little bit about your kidney story. So I want to let you go and talk about that a little bit. Tell us, from the time you were diagnosed, from the time you were transplanted to the current day, what's been going on with your kidneys?
I have to work through 33 years of kidney transplantation and about 40 years of carrying a diagnosis of FSGS. I won't go into the explanation of that, but I've been blessed, Jim. was born in a small town in Nebraska. I had a loving father and mother and a stable family environment, which was totally Christian based. And so I felt that I was prepared for this, that when I actually was drafted in 1970, I had protein in my urine. I hadn't been to school. I had no clue. Matter of fact, the guy who was doing my lab work or my urinalysis during the physical said, "Hey, you've got protein in your urine." I said, "Well, what's that do for you?" And he said, "Well, it don't get you out of the Army." So I was drafted and away I went. So I carried this annoying thing all the way through my 2 years in the Army. And then I went on to nursing school after 2 years in the Army. And in a lab one day, in a biology lab, we were doing a test called the Bence-Jones test. People probably my age would know about it. You young folks won't have a clue what it is. But you put a sample of your urine in a reagent and it bubbles. If it doesn't bubble, you don't have any protein in your urine. Well, mine came bubbling right out of the tube. So the instructor there said, "You know what? You need to see a doctor. You have a lot of protein in your urine." And so consequently, that's what I did. I went to see a doctor and immediately said, "Yeah, you have protein in your urine." His GP, and he said, "There are a lot of things that can cause it. Do you run a lot?" And I said, "I used to, but I'm not a marathon runner or anything." He said, "Well, protein comes out of your urine but not at this amount." So he says, "I think at two plus, I think what we ought to do, we'll just kind of watch this." And me being the naive guy I was, I said, "Let's work on that, and I'll be back." Never went back. Got into nursing school and went through nursing school, and finally got out into working. And I was with the VA at that time. And I was fortunate enough to run into a family practitioner in the VA system who said, "Kent, I've got to refer you into San Antonio because we didn't have a nephrologist in my small community in Kerrville, Texas." And he went on to tell me, he said, "You have definitely got something wrong with your kidneys, and you need to get it checked out." So he sent me to the guy who I think in my life actually saved my life, Dr. Periac Mulgrew. And I've written about him, and I've had a great relationship with him. And he biopsied me, and he came out and said, "You know what?" Told my wife and I, we were sitting there. He says, "You have a horrible disease." That's how he framed it. He said, "Do you have a horrible disease? You have FSGS. We call it focal glomerular sclerosis." And I said, "What the hell is that?" And he said, "Well, it's hardening of the arteries of the kidneys." And consequently, I said, "Okay, so what do we do?" And he said, "There's not much we can do." And of course, that was like a punch in the gut. Here I am. I have 2 children, young children to boot, and a wife who's working, and a whole life in front of me. And the only thing I can think of, well, man, am I gonna die? I had no idea what this was all about. He took me under his wing and he said, "Listen, there's not a lot we can do for this except control your blood pressure, and we can put you on a steroid balloon. You can kind of give a large dose of steroids over a certain period of time to see if you can suppress the illness." Of course, I was the one that ballooned up. I swelled up, and I had nightmares galore and sores on my face, and in the long term, it did not work. And at that point, while I was going through all that, I really started to dig into what was going on with my body. And I talked to him at length, and he told me, "Kent, you're not going to do well on dialysis. You're just not going to do well. You're too active. You're too high maintenance. You need to think about having a transplant." That was in 1985, if you can believe that. He told me that. And I said, okay, I've got 2 brothers. He said, good. He said, you need to call them and have them. We're going to have to get them tested. So that's exactly what we did. We got both of them down here. Kip was the match. And on April 30th, 1987, we went to surgery, and I've been blowing and going ever since.
Okay, so we talked about this a little bit the last time that you were on. 1987, preemptive transplant, that almost unheard of at the time.
Well, having a doctor tell you that you needed a transplant without even discussing dialysis was even more rare. That's the beauty of this man. He's still alive, still functioning, still seeing patients. He's been a nephrology transplant specialist his whole life. That's all he's wanted to do is work with kidney patients. And it was a godsend. I tell you, he pulled me through it. And that was a 60-mile drive, 2 or 3 times, sometimes 4 times a week, one way. So 120 miles round trip. So you can see how many miles I put on.
Right.
So at one point in time, he said, after I'd been transplanted, he said, listen, this is something you're working 2 jobs sometimes. And I don't know, most of the time you got something going on. I think now that you have a doctor up in Kerrville, I'd like you to go cut down on your mileage and go to him. So I started in with a group in Kerrville, which was a blessing because I didn't have to drive down there. And I've caught a raft. I've caught 4 really good nephrologists, and they've taken really good care of me. And I mean, I don't know what to say other than I'm blessed. There's no doubt in my mind that this was God's intention to put me in a family like I have and to get me through it with 2 brothers that are still going and blowing. My brother that gave me the kidney is absolutely in perfect health. My kidney's 66, my kidney is 68, which is his kidney, and I'm 70. So
we're talking about 130 years of kidney experience for your kidney.
Yeah, and
Plus,
and my last creatinine, when I went to surgery, my creatinine was 17. I don't know if people out there, I'm sure most of the people in the world understand a creatinine of 17, when normal in the lab at that time was 1.2.
Yeah.
0.5 to 1.2, and mine was 17. I had 2 days, a Tuesday and a Thursday of they put a central line in, and I had dialysis because I didn't want it, but the doctor said, Dr. Mulgrew says, listen, if I can give you an edge, maybe taking some of these toxins out will help you, and I want you to do it. So I did it. He told me, I want you to do it. So I said, okay. I was sick. I was so sick from all the fluid coming off. I think he took 10 pounds off the first shot and 12 pounds the second shot. I thought I was going to die. So we knew that wasn't going to work. So the following day, on a Friday, my brother was already there. They transplanted me on that Friday, the day after my second dialysis.
Excellent. So really and truly, with the exception of the 2 occasions that you were dialyzed, you didn't spend one day on dialysis.
No, sir, not one day.
Wow,
I had a central line put in. I had no fistula or anything, just a central line, and that came out after 4 days. I mean, it could have come out right after that, but when I went right to surgery. So I just think back about all of this. I'm thinking about how blessed that I am, but I also think that I was put there. I think I really, that whole situation was perfect. I really feel bad for some of the people I have known and worked with who just haven't gotten the blessings that I've gotten. It's not luck. All right. There's no luck to it. It's a matter of just being with the Holy Spirit. I just feel that everything that I have done has been God sent. So that's where I'm at. And I'm still that way.
Talk to us a little bit about how your personal circumstances have affected your kidney advocacy. How would you say the experiences that you have affected what you do as an advocate? Because just my opinion, you're the best kidney advocate in America right now. How has
Oh,
it
golly,
affected
no.
your advocacy?
No. You know what? I think the most enjoyable thing about what I do is I can do it. I wouldn't be here if I hadn't had that transplant. I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing with the kidney community and in the community without what my brother did for me. It's really not about me. It's just about the fact that I was raised well. I knew the Lord, and everything that I've done now since the last 20 years have been to help others, to try to get them to understand that this isn't a death sentence. And the only thing that really keeps me going now is the fact that I believe so heartily in preemptive transplant that I'm dug in. I want to work to get people be transplanted before they go on dialysis. And we talk about it many, many ways in all the things that I've been in the DOD and all of these things. Early diagnosis. Well, okay, so early diagnosis is great. And then early treatment. Yeah, early treatment is great. But then what do you do when none of that works? And all you can do is prepare somebody for dialysis? That's not the way I look at it. I feel that there ought to be an avenue right away to prepare them for transplant. Not wait until the end. And I understand dialysis. There are times where you have to go on dialysis. I didn't have to. All right. That's not to say I wouldn't have. My circumstances are totally different. Everybody's are. So in general, to answer your question, I just think that I was supposed to be doing what I'm doing. It's just natural.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now with Kidney Solutions. We talked about that a little bit the last time that you were on the show, and you mentioned that the preemptive transplant thing. How does your experience, Kidney Solutions, preemptive transplant, how does that all fit together, Ken?
If you know ahead of time, again, if you know that you have an illness that is going to be progressive and take away your livelihood and your love for your family, and it could lead to something such as dialysis, but there's an alternative in transplant, then you need a mentor to guide you through that. All right. And at Kidney Solutions, what we do is we do that guidance preoperatively, during surgery, and then postoperatively. And our main goal at this point in time is to do preemptive transplant, working with the physicians early on, not wait until someone's stage 5 or late stage 4. And even if they are, let's get them mentally set to prepare for transplant, not dialysis. That's the takeaway from Kidney Solutions.
Well, the one time that I was down in Texas with you recently around your birthday, the very first place that we went was to the hospital to talk to your friend Jason, who had just been transplanted like the day before I got there.
Yeah.
And his parents, and they were your clients. Just using Jason as an example, can you tell us a little bit about how that all works with Kidney Solutions?
Jason's a unique story. We met him at a symposium. He was diabetic and he had an ulcer on his foot, and he was overweight. And he just stopped by our booth to talk to us and asked us what we did. And we just advised him that we want to get you well enough to go and get a transplant. And he was on dialysis, and he said, "I'll never get a transplant." And I said, "Yeah, well, you'll get a transplant." You sure will. Why would you not get a transplant? No, take that farther down the road, a year and a half. He lost a leg because that ulcer didn't heal. So he's now an amputee. He had impeccable blood sugar control. He went in and had his transplant, and now he's helping me on my podcasts. He is doing fantastic after roughly 6 months. I don't think it's even been 6 months. I lose track of time.
Okay.
Another fella called me today who was out a year, and I said, that can't be. We just left the hospital. How can you be out a year? There's no way you can. But that's what we do. And then with the follow-up's the most important, because you get a kidney, so what? So what are you going to do? You get a kidney, right? And you say,
Right.
how are you going to take care of it? Who do you know in the world that could help you take care of your kidney afterwards? Wouldn't it be someone who has had the experience? I'm not the only one. There are hundreds of us out here that have had experience with kidney transplantation who can say, let me help you. Let me along with the ride. And you structure it so that you're compatible with the transplant program and the doctors. I think that's our leg up. We have a good relationship with the doctors, because that was my job for the last 11 years when I was working. I worked directly with all kinds of physicians in quality monitoring and making sure that the outcomes were good for the patients. And I got to work with some really great people, and most of them, the nephrologists, I got to work directly with them in our hospital. So, I mean, it's like it was a no-brainer when I retired. I really wanted to step that up and work towards preemptive transplant. That's really where I'm headed.
Okay, so you're not for profit. You're procurement organization, Kidney Solutions.
Yes.
You work directly with nephrologists and their patients. This is before transplant. You work with them to obtain a transplant, and you work with them post-transplant to make sure they stay healthy, follow their regimen, take their medicine, things like that. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. Totally fair. Matter of fact, it's probably, I've had...
Better start doing some push-ups, John.
Listen, Jonathan is a great example. He's prepared. I really believe when you talk to him, he'll tell you how prepared he is for what he's going to do, and then what he's going to have to do afterwards. And that comes directly from working with people because of your experience, but also making sure that you're talking with their doctors and you have a relationship with the transplant team. I would like to have a better relationship with the transplant teams, but I understand how busy they are. And now with COVID, it's virtually impossible, to accompany a patient in like I would do and be there when they have the transplant. So, but we make it up with Zoom. We Zoom everything nowadays, right?
Right.
There's always a way around it. Yeah, there's always a way around it. And we still have phones. People still pick up the phone and call you in the middle of the afternoon and say, geez, I feel horrible, and then you just say, well, okay, how horrible do you feel? Well, I don't get what's horrible. Well, I'm throwing up and I just can't keep anything down. And, the regular things that go through post-transplant. And you say, okay, let's call the transplant team right now and tell them and see if they want you to come in, or if they can give you advice on what it is you need to be doing because you're vomiting. And do you have diarrhea with it? Well, yeah. Okay, so let's not wait. Let's call right now. You call right down to the transplant team and talk to them. And I'm not a doctor. I'm a mentor. I'm somebody that I have a good feel for what people need to do who've been transplanted. Now, you want to talk dialysis? I can speak to it. I've worked with it, but I think being a SME, content expert specialist, that's not my ball of wax.
Okay. Kent, what do you envision as the future for Kidney Solutions? what do you see Kidney Solutions doing from here? You've talked to us a little bit about how it works. What would you like to see happen in the future?
Well, I'd like to see us go forward, but I've come to the realization that forward doesn't always mean fast. I try to stay in my own lane, try to make sure that what I'm doing is beneficial, not just a lot of work and no result. For instance, knowing that I have been able to assist, the program has been able to assist 5 people get preemptively transplant means a lot to me. If it was just one, it would mean a lot to me. And because when they call and say, hey, I'm back at work, and you see them get back to work. I have an RN. I have a gal who was on dialysis for 3 months. I consider that nearly, being off of dialysis. 3 months is nothing on dialysis because they can wait. You can wait 11 years. I have a gal who's been on the waiting list for 11 years.
10 years on average in California.
Yeah. In Texas, I think I'm going to say around 8. I have a patient who's been on a day. You don't always find donors. That's one of the hardest things for me to understand why people don't want to donate. But I think it's more of a just not knowing. It's not a fear. How can you fear something you don't know anything about? Once you get to know something, then you might have some fear. But just asking about it and being able to ask someone if they would want to donate becomes a hard task. And that's what we're here for. Let me give you a really great example. We have a guy here in town who works as a pest control person, and he had my card for 3 months. Finally called me. The doctor gave it to him. And I said, okay, the standard algorithm for Kidney Solutions is to start at the top with family. And I asked him, I said, what kind of family history do you have? Do you have sisters, brothers, cousins? What is it that you have? He said, well, I have two sisters. And I said, have you talked to them about your illness? Well, not really. I've mentioned it. And one of his sisters was an RN. And I knew her. So I said, well, why don't you talk to her and see what she thinks? Talk to both of them. Called me the next day. He said, you know what? They have a lot of questions. And I said, I'm tell you what. I have a great partner. She donated a kidney to her dad a couple years ago, and she's available for your sisters to talk to. So he has a barbecue at his house. She came up from San Antonio, sat with the sisters, answered all the questions, and they both went and got in the system and were tested within the week. And then within 28 days, he was transplanted.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's fast, man.
Yeah, and it doesn't always go like that, but it can. That's the key. He never saw dialysis. He didn't want it. He told us, I don't want to go to dialysis. I don't want to do that. I want to go as fast as I can. I don't want it. So I understand. I get it.
Okay. Kent, I'm going to talk a little bit to our buddy John and ask him about his story because he has a fascinating story. So I want to make sure I get that out. So
sounds good.
How you doing tonight, Jonathan?
I'm doing good, Jim. Thanks for having me on, Kent.
No worries. No worries. Happy to do it. I understand that you're a married man. Is that right?
Yes, I'm married to Melissa. She's my wife of 19 years.
Just so you know, she's watching. I saw her name come up. She's keeping an eye on you, John, so no swearing tonight.
She does. She's also my home nurse, so I have to be a good guy.
All right. Do you have children?
Yes, I do. I have a 17-year-old son who's a senior this year. He's graduating, class of 2020. Plans on attending ACU in the fall, which is Abilene Christian University. And then my daughter, Mackenzie, she's a sophomore at Tybee High School in Kerrville.
Okay. Want to say hello to my friend, give a shout out to my friend Tanya Alvarez, who just checked into the show. All right. And you currently suffer from kidney failure, right?
Yes, sir, I do. Unfortunately, yes, I do.
Okay. When were you first diagnosed?
I was diagnosed on July 8th. Um, I had some really bad, like flu-like symptoms, and I thought I was fighting the flu. Was being a stubborn husband, and my wife had kept telling me, go to the hospital, go to the emergency room. Of course, I thought I was going to just, get better. And I got up to get out of bed. I fell. I had no strength at all. My son had to come into the bedroom and help me back into the bed along with my wife. And I was a big man at that time. I was 350 pounds at that time.
Wow.
I couldn't put my shoes on. That's how swollen I had gotten, but still no light bulbs that my kidneys had failed yet. And I ended up, my wife said, I noticed while you've been laying in bed that you haven't been going to the bathroom. Could you try to urinate? And I went to try to urinate, and I couldn't. And at that point, I realized I was in a crisis and a dilemma, and I needed to call 911, and we called 911.
All right. I was checking your news story. The things that caused your kidneys to fail,
Yes.
Diabetes, high blood pressure,
Yes.
and family history. What was there in your family history that contributed to this?
So the diabetes, the type 2 diabetes, and the high blood pressure, they were out of control for a long time. Of course, my grandparents had it, mom, dad, sister,
Mm-hmm.
we all have it. It just, passed down. Poor eating habits as well. And so, and I had a real bad fear of doctors. I had white coat syndrome. I did not like doctors. Now they're my friends.
Yeah, you got.
When something happens like this, you go into a whole different mindset, and you have to be open to just start embracing medical care. And I did not for a long time. I just pushed it away. Did not care for medical care. Didn't want it. I thought I was Superman. Thought I was going to live forever. And unfortunately, God showed me something else. He showed me what was really going on and gave me a good wake-up call for sure.
Okay. Going back to July 8th, 2019, when you first started having issues, you told us you went to the hospital. What happened from the time you went to the first hospital?
So, St. Peterson Hospital here in Kerrville, Texas, does not have a dialysis ward. So what happened was when I went in, I was having trouble. I actually started having trouble in the ambulance a little bit before I left with breathing. My breathing had increased. My heart was in sort of an arrhythmia that was not normal. And they got me there. And when they got me to Sid Peterson, they finally got the blood test results. Once they got the blood test results, everything started going into a real fast motion. Doctor came in, nurses were flying in, and they were like, we got to get him stat flighted to San Antonio Methodist fast. His kidney, he's in renal failure. And they stat flighted me, put me in the helicopter. I was out of there within maybe 20 minutes. And they got me down to San Antonio really fast in the helicopter. I would say it was probably about a 20-minute ride in the helicopter. Once I got there, I can still hear the doctor say it. The emergency room physician, he says, "You better grab the crash cart." And when I heard that, I immediately, my instincts were to pray as a person of faith. And at that point, I blacked out. And from what everybody had told me from that point, I was it was an emergency situation. They had shocked my heart. I was in like I said, a bad arrhythmia with my heart, and ended up in the ICU for 3 days on a large dialysis machine for like constant treatment. I think I was on the machine for I don't know, like 6 hours at a time or something like that.
Mhm.
They ended up pulling off like it was over like 60 pounds of fluid that they
Jeepers.
honestly, you're looking at a living medical miracle if there is one, for sure. I am a testimony for that because I should not have been there. They told me after the doctors had came in, the nephrologist, I had Dr. Luna down there in San Antonio Methodist, and she's amazing. They told me I was about 30 minutes from death, that I would have just fell asleep here in the apartment, and my wife and kids would have, found me passed away. And
Oh boy.
the time in the ICU was a scary time because I was out, but when I came to, I had all kind of tubes and hoses and lines, and my arms were strapped, braced to the bed, and I was trying to pull my lines out, they said, and I could not communicate because I was intubated and had a tube down my throat, and I was actually coming to. I was trying to tell them I was coming to, but I couldn't. And so I went to sign language, and I started doing sign language. My sister's hearing impaired, and I started doing sign language. They thought I was still trying to grab my lines, but I wasn't. And I ended up being able to communicate to my mom, and then my mom realized, oh, he's coming to, and my wife and my daughter. And once they realized that I was coming to, they went and grabbed the nurse, and from there I started. They started trying to get me as well as possible. As a matter of fact, once they got the tube out and all that, they got me out of the bed the next day. And believe it or not, I had more strength than what they thought. And well, I was in the ICU for 3 days, but after I'd come to out of that, they got me out of bed, and like I said, I stayed there for 2 weeks
Oof.
before I was released.
Wow.
And, they put me in. Like I said, I ended up on dialysis, on hemodialysis, and and I did my treatments there, and that was the start of everything with the dialysis. At that point, there was no choice. I had no choice to do dialysis.
That's right.
That's
right.
right.
You're definitely an emergency situation.
right.
Where did you start doing dialysis, Jonathan?
Sir?
Where did you start doing dialysis?
I started doing dialysis in Methodist, and then they got a chair open for me here in Kerrville at the DaVita Clinic here in Kerrville. I was to their credit, they have an amazing staff there. My doctor there, Dr. McDowell, she's amazing, and the whole team there helped. I mean, when I left the hospital, I was still in pretty bad shape. And they use me as an example there and tell my story there a lot to show, what dialysis can do for you as a renal patient. And because I was still in really bad shape when I showed up there at DaVita. They really helped nurse me and get me to where I am right now. I got to give them a lot of credit.
Okay. And how long were you on in-center hemodialysis?
In center, I was there 10 months.
Okay. And I understand now that you're doing peritoneal dialysis at home. Is that correct?
No, I'm doing home hemo with
home hemo. Okay.
Yeah,
Back
home
Uncle Jim.
Yeah, that's okay.
Be an Uncle Jim.
Yeah, I'm on home hemodialysis with the next stage machine, and I have to say it's an amazing process to get out of center. But you do have to have a loved one at home that can help learn and take care of you and help be there for you while you're on the machine, and help you maintain everything. And it's a lot, but it's worth it because you're no longer stuck on the schedule and in the center. And that was one of the things was I now have options. I can actually travel, and I can work. I can do things that when you're stuck on the schedule with the in center, you're locked into your chair time, and there's not a whole lot. You can't change it. And so if you got something else going on, it doesn't matter. You have to go to dialysis. So
yeah.
with this, I can do treatments in the morning. I can do treatments at night. I can do treatments during the middle of the day if I need to. So it makes it a little more options and more availability. You just got to be willing to learn.
Okay. And I understand that you're looking for a living donor. Is that correct?
Yes. And dialysis is a Band-Aid, and it's basically a temporary solution to a long-term problem unless you get a transplant. And the next stage machine will never take place of a live kidney. And God intended for us to have, our organs. Unfortunately, mine have failed. And so I'm looking for a living donor that would be my hero and donate me a kidney. And, that it would be amazing. It would be life-changing. Of course, this whole situation, this whole turn of events have been life-changing for me. I've met you, I've met Kent. A lot of people have came in my life ever since this has all happened that I don't think it's been by chance. It's definitely been a God sent. And I believe that the right person is going to be there for me to donate me a kidney. And they're going to come along, but it's all in His timing. So I'm positive. I'm just waiting. I'll continue doing my dialysis treatment until I get a kidney. And I look forward to that day. It'll be an amazing day.
Okay. And where are you listed, Jonathan? What transplant center?
I'm listed in San Antonio Transplant Center there at
Methodist.
San Antonio. Can you help me?
Yeah, Methodist Hospital.
Yeah, it's Methodist.
Especially in transplant hospital. Yeah.
And on my Facebook page, I have the link for that particular hospital, which is on my shirt. Hope for Jonathan. Give the gift of life.
Okay.
And
they can give me a call too, and I'll guide them.
So
somebody that wants to test for you or be interested in donating to you, they can contact the center through that link on your page.
Yes.
Hope for Jonathan - give the gift of life. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Or they can contact Kidney Solutions and talk with Kent.
And they can talk with Kent. Absolutely.
And I want to say that Kent has been a major influence through this whole process and the whole situation. And I want to thank Kent and Kidney Solutions for all their help and assistance.
You got it, bub.
Okay. All right.
And we're going to write it till you fire me.
It's never going to happen.
Because
my God.
We don't charge anything at Kidney Solutions. I just want to get that plug in. We're a free agency.
That's right.
Shameless plug.
That's right.
And that's a shameless
work
plug
with Ken for
Kidney
free.
Solutions. And we are free.
All right.
Trust me.
Jonathan, you're an old blood type. I'm an old blood type. We're universal donors, but the only people that we can receive a direct donation from is another O. Is that what you understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
That's what they've told me.
Now, I also understand that your transplant center recognizes a donor swap or paired donation. In other words, you have a donor that doesn't match, somebody else has a donor that doesn't match, your donor matches that other person, that other person's donor matches you, you can swap donors. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's
so
correct.
paired donation. So anybody could inquire and donate on your behalf, right? Any blood type.
Yes, it doesn't matter the blood type because of the swap program, which I will say is amazing. I've heard stories of people that are involved with like six people transplant that 6 people swap kidneys to be able to get kidneys, and it's an amazing process, amazing program.
Okay. And how was it that you started working with Kent? Can you describe for us how you started with him and what's been going on ever since?
Well, the story's kind of strange. My wife was having her gallbladder taken out, and a person came to her and found out and knew her, a friend of the family that knew Kent from somewhere else and had his business card and gave me the business card at her surgery. And then immediately after I left the surgery and got her home, I called Kent like the next day. And because I was so excited, because I was like, this guy can help me, I think, but I want to find out. And I was a little skeptical. I wasn't sure. I even told my wife before I left, because what happened was I talked to Kent on the phone, and Kent wanted to meet at a restaurant. We met at Denny's in town here. And, he just wanted to talk. And but I didn't know him. And so I was a little skeptical. But I told my wife before I left, I said, if I don't come back within about an hour or so, send the police or whatever, But once I sat down with Kent and I talked with him for 2 minutes, I knew Kent was legit. I knew Kent was compassionate and caring about what he was doing. He was serious about what he was doing. He shared his story with me and conversed with me about what he had went through personally, and then conversed with me about how he could help me. And Kent has been that way the whole time. And Kidney Solutions, they have been this way the whole time. Just they've printed up flyers for me. They've shared my post, boosted my post, helped me in those manners of trying to get me a kidney donor has been their ultimate goal. And it's just they've been amazing. I can't thank them enough.
Jonathan, I understand, Kent mentioned to us his podcast. What do you call it, Kent? Kidney Stories on Kent or something like that?
Kent's Kidney Stories.
Kent Kidney Stories. Simpler than that, Jim. Jeez. And you've done a podcast with Kent too, is that correct?
Yes, I did a podcast with Kent. Yes. And it was amazing. We talked about my story, and I got a lot of positive feedback from that. So yes, sir.
Okay, and what's the name of that transplant center again, Kent?
Methodist Specialty and Transplant Hospital.
And that's in San Antonio, Texas.
That's correct. And we refer them directly if that's where their docs want them to go, or where the patient wants to go. We refer them to their Lifeline. It's a direct phone number, and then also you can go online and fill out the paperwork immediately. You don't have to wait for somebody to call you back.
Okay. And the link to sign up to test, or the link to fill out the paperwork is on Jonathan's kidney page. Hope for Jonathan, and it's all in lowercase - give the gift of life. Do I have the right page, John?
Yes, and it should start populating once you get the Hope for Jonathan. It'll populate, and you'll see this logo right here, this green ribbon. It'll say Hope for Jonathan. Give the gift of life.
Okay. So
it's also on the Kidney Solutions website at a direct link.
Yes.
Okay.
Also there. I also have a website listed there that you can go on there as well, and it's the links on the website as well, and the links for my website is on the Facebook page.
Okay. So listen, folks, if you're out there and you're in the Texas area, and you've seen our friend John tonight, you've seen our friend Kent tonight, John is seeking. You want to help John out, go to his page, click on the link, fill out the information, get tested for Jonathan, and let's see if we can get him a transplant.
Absolutely. Please.
John's a good guy, got a nice family. We want to make sure that we help him out. Got one of the most interesting kidney stories that I've heard in a while. So, let's try to help our buddy out and get something clicking. So, John, I very much appreciate you coming on and telling us your kidney story.
tonight. It's one of my favorite things in the whole world is to give people a chance to tell their kidney stories. That's why I started that page, Kidney Stories, in the first place. So thank you so much, John. Appreciate it. Thumbs up. Good job.
Jim, I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me on. I can't thank you.
No worries. Happy to do it. Happy to do it. All right, Mr. Kent. On the 19th of June, I'm having another friend of yours on. Her name is Clarissa A. Thompson. Can you tell us a little bit about Clarissa, where she works and what she does, that sort of thing?
You would put me on the spot because it's one of the, one of the transplant, for deceased kidney patients, and that it's a regional. I can't remember the title of it, so you got me in a pickle here.
Sorry, buddy.
She's been a very gracious person to Kidney Solutions and to my support group up here in Kerrville. She comes on regular basis, and it's the organ procurements for this area. That's what she's in charge of in San Antonio.
Yeah, and just so the folks know, the reason that I wanted to have her on is she comes from a little bit different perspective. She has donors that want to donate. So instead of folks that are seeking a kidney, we're going to be talking on the 19th with someone that has donors that want to donate. So that I thought that might be interesting for our audience, a little different spin on how the kidney transplant thing works. So, you're going to want to check out Clarissa, and she's bringing one of her donors with her. So we'll get a little perspective from her group and from her, and we'll get a little perspective from the donor themselves. So, okay, guys.
It's actually a donor family, Jim. A donor family. Yeah. And so it was a deceased donor, and the family is going to come and talk with y'all.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Can I add one thing before I go?
Yeah, of course.
I noticed that. No, there's two things. I noticed across one of the questions or one of the statements is that you really, it's a misinformation that a person has to be with you if you're on home dialysis.
Well, we know a patient that does home dialysis alone. Our friend Melissa Topp.
Yeah,
and she's been on the show.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
so Tanya Alvarez, thank you for the heads up. Appreciate it.
Exactly. And so we just want to tell everybody, it's very helpful to have someone like Jason Scott that will step up, but it won't keep you from being able to do it by yourself at home. There are parameters, and transplant programs are totally different, but it doesn't mean you have to. She is correct. She's totally correct on that. Then the second thing is, if you're sitting at home watching the tube, you're watching cartoons, or you're watching, the Westerns like I like to watch, and you think, it comes over top of you, and you think, gee, I think I'd like to give a kidney. That's a good feeling to know, because think of this. 13 people die waiting for a kidney. All right? 13 people a day.
Every day.
Every day.
100,000 people. 100,000 people or so on that list.
Yeah. So it's one of the most unselfish things you can do. And I guarantee you, if you do step up to become a donor, it won't be because you think you have to. It's because you've been moved to do it. And that's a blessing. And you cannot imagine what my brother has to say when you speak to him about, when you say, Kip, I really appreciate what you did. I understand how hard it was for you to do. He said, it wasn't hard for me to do. You'd have done it for me.
Oof.
There you
go.
What
a great brother. What a great brother.
Jim.
And my other brother, the one I did a podcast on this about the odd man out, he thought he was going to be the one. And he just called me almost every day. That was before days of cell phone, in the office. And he'd say, I'm really going to do this. I want to do this. But when it came down to the nitty gritty, and they tested it out. Kip was a much closer match than Carrie, my youngest brother. And Kip said to Carrie, "Listen, Carrie, you have kids. This is no place for you right now. I can do this. I have no children. I want to do it." I listened to the whole conversation. "I'm going to do this."
Wow.
Okay. So set yourself on course when you're thinking about all the people that are waiting for a kidney. They don't want to be there. Trust me. They need a kidney. 13 people a day. That's a big number.
Passing away, and there are so many people that are added to that list
Every day.
every day, and
Yeah.
the numbers just seem to go up. They transplanted about 20,000 people or so the last couple of years. 100,000 people need a kidney. 20,000 people transplanted. So there's a big gap there between donors.
Yeah.
So
and another thing, yep. And another thing, I would just, if you're carrying protein in your urine, and you know that, and you've got high blood pressure or mildly high blood pressure, and your doctor tells you that, don't take the old adage, "Oh, let's just watch it." Figure it out. You shouldn't have any protein in your urine. No way.
No.
No
And
way.
we recommend that everybody go in and get tested. It's a simple urine test. It's a simple blood test. Knowledge is power. You're better off knowing, and the earlier the treatment, the better off the end result is going to be. And we've talked about that a lot on our show. So
30% of the people who get diagnosed with renal disease don't go to end-stage renal disease. So what do we do with the other 70%? We try to treat them, but we prepare them. Not everybody can have a transplant. I get that.
Right.
But why not work with them to make sure that it is completely possible before we just pass on to something else?
Right. Guys, we're just running a little bit past the hour. Just a fascinating conversation. Appreciate you coming on and talking to us. So thank you very much. I'm back on the air again on the 19th. We're going to be talking with our friend Clarissa Thompson. She's going to be talking to us about donating from a donor's point of view, something we haven't had on the show as of yet. So I wanted to do that for everybody. And I greatly appreciate everybody checking in and watching the show. Pass us around. We record all this so you can still see us after it's all over. And I'll see you guys again on the 19th. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
You guys are welcome. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it so very much.
Thanks, Jim. Stay safe. God bless you.
All right. Thank you.